All right, welcome back. We want to continue with that conversation, and we want to touch on the issue of blockchain technology. This is a new concept in the market, and of course, it comes with a certain level of risk. From where you sit, what are some of the risks that we are looking at in terms of just haphazardly adapting crypto?
Yeah. Blockchain technology, as it sits on itself, the technology itself, I think it can be leveraged for trade in terms of the blockchain. The problem that also has been there, and I think also from the regulatory perspective, is on the confirmation of who holds the crypto. How can we be able to trace the transactions? And I believe with that, that's the thing that is there, because if you're not able to confirm the flow of transactions, then it brings an issue.
Okay, so from where you sit, is it time that we tapped into that technology, or do we need to hold our horses, make sure that we have the right policies in place, and so that by the time we're adapting blockchain technology, we have all the mechanisms to minimize the risk?
Yeah, I feel even from the regulatory perspective, from last year, they mentioned about, they issued a white paper in terms of CBDC, so a central bank digital currency, and they invited stakeholders from across, banks, fintechs, and everyone who's actually involved in that industry. So I believe it's something, if well regulated, then it can be able to actually bring opportunities and actually sort some of these issues we're having, even in terms of trade and all of those things. Yeah.
All right. Now, the other thing that has been quite an issue as far as diaspora remittances goes is cutting down the number of intermediaries and the sort of the roadblocks and the red tape that puts in through intermediaries. So first of all, what role do intermediaries play, and how do we minimize that?
Yeah, an intermediary is basically an organization or somebody who assists in the process of completing the entire transaction. So definitely they will have overheads. So these overheads has to be met within the transaction. So the more intermediaries you have, the more cost there is, because they have to meet their overheads. So the less you can have in terms of the intermediaries, then definitely you'll be able to reduce the cost. So the less intermediaries, the better in terms of cost. The more the cost for the same.
All right. Now we are in an environment, we're in a global economy, so to speak, and again, the cost of transaction is something that we need to really address. When you look at East African countries, if you cannot be able to pay for services in Tanzania or in Uganda, and let's say you're in the shipping industry, that becomes quite a strain on your business. So do you think it is about time that we spread our wings, so to speak, and made sure that we have that mechanism and that framework to ensure that we have the cheapest cost of doing business by reducing the amount of money that we charge to do these cross-border transactions?
Yeah, definitely. So if we can have more direct conversations with the other partners in East Africa, it becomes easier. The biggest issue that has been happening is, as you mentioned, intermediaries. So for what is the transaction flow? Me sending to maybe say somebody in Uganda, is it going directly via Uganda, or do I have to send it to an intermediary maybe based in another country, send it to another intermediary who has... So depending on the flow, then it becomes costlier for you to be able to move. But if you have a direct relationship in terms of transaction-wise, then it becomes cheaper because you're dealing like two people directly. Yeah.
All right, you talked about an increase in terms of volumes that we are receiving as a country. Where do you see a lot of this money? I remember just towards the end of last year, one of the biggest things that came out is that a lot of this money that comes from the diaspora goes towards consumption. Has that changed?
Not really. We still see a lot of, the biggest percentage, we can say like 80%, 85% actually goes to consumption. And this is consumption whereby somebody is actually sending to maybe their parents or their dependents actually in this country to be able to actually, for their basic needs and everything. So there's been a push, there's been a deliberate push from even impact partners, as well as also banks, in terms of how do you sensitize, how do we do financial literacy to these people? How do we tell them that actually you need to be able to use this money for you to be financially independent? So those are some of the initiatives that we are actually doing to be able to promote for it to go to saving and investment.
All right, let's talk about partnerships and leveraging on some of these partnerships. When you look at our banking industry, for instance, there has been a lot of efforts to try to partner and basically increase their reach. As far as cross-border payment and diaspora remittances goes, what more needs to be done?
Yeah, I think policy level, in terms of the cost, we need to be able to do, because you will find that the rural people who are actually in the rural areas do not have access. And basically the biggest thing about that is also the cost, the convenience. So how do you leverage on the partnership, as you've said, for the people who are actually there, who know what is actually happening? And then how do you also leverage in impact partners who are able to also assist you with the technical assistance to be able to know how to be able to leverage on that? How do you then also partner with financial literacy experts to be able to also ensure that they train the people who actually are trying to reach to be able to utilize the same? So it's multifaceted into different industries, but that is now the push, and that is the discussion that is on the table that all the partners have to have.
All right, before we wrap up, do you feel like there is a financial literacy gap that we're currently seeing in the market? That's why a lot of this money is going back towards consumption?
Yes, I think it's also a way that we can be able to tell them you can consume now and still continue consuming. You can save now and actually put it on investment and be financially independent. We also look at what is our role as also financial institutions to be able to educate in terms of and be transparent in terms of, you mentioned, in terms of cost, in terms of convenience. Where can they be able to access the remittances? Which jurisdictions can they be able to do this? So it's also a challenge to financial institutions and even the policymakers to be able to ensure that this is done, and that the industry and the people in the industry who are the consumers are aware of what actually they're getting.
All right, in 1 minute, there's a perception that women do better financial management than men. How true is this?
I think that's based on research. So research says that, yes, if you look at the percentage of women who actually are utilizing the same, they are higher. In terms of savings, they are higher. However, in terms of access, it is low. So I think that is what the research is saying, and research is based on facts. So I will say that based on that, yes, women are actually better in terms of that management of the finances.
All right, I'm going to give you final words in terms. So going into the future, of course, cross-border payments is going to be a big thing. What are some of the things that we need to do to make sure that this is efficient, to make sure that the country and the economy benefits from cross-border and diaspora remittances?
I think the biggest thing is looking at the cost of operations for all the partners. So looking at the cost of operations in terms of how then can we be able to reduce this? That is something that I'm looking forward to. The other thing is how then do we partner with synergize all the partners, looking at SACCOs, looking at banks, looking at telcos, looking at financial literacy experts, looking at impact investors and all of those things. How then do we partner to be able to reduce this? The other aspect that is key is knowledge. Is there customer awareness in terms of remittance? If we can be able to do this for the person who's actually receiving and the person who's actually sending, then I think we'll be able to leverage on that, and we'll be able to see more inflows into the country in terms of remittance, diaspora remittances.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for making the time to come and speak to us on this matter. And of course, we'll be looking forward to see how much more the country collects going into the future.
Thank you.
All right, now moving on.